James sat down upon the padded stool that sat before the vanity and exhaled, his shoulders slumped with exhaustion. His aunt always insisted that he wake early normally, but today was special. His mother was coming to pick him up today, and that meant extra time was needed to get ready. It was 6:30 a.m. James had pivoted around, taking in the room. Today would be his last morning here. The walls were painted pink, the carpet a white shag. On the walls hung paintings of a cute little sheep and a girl in an antiquated frilly dress. On the white wooden nightstand was a vase of flowers. A shelf contained dolls and books meant for girls, things like Black Beauty and Little Women, things James considered mindless drivel. In the closet hung dresses and skirts, and shoes lined the floor. In a pink painted dresser, cute panties had been neatly folded, along with shorts, bras, tops, and even leotards and tights. Aunt Rose had enrolled James in ballet classes. How he hated them! James returned his gaze back to the oval-shaped mirror. He looked at the creature reflected in it. It was him, but not. His hair had grown down to his collarbone. It was wavy, and a deep, rich color that sat somewhere between a sandy brown and a blonde. Aunt Rose had said it should be grown even longer. Thick bangs had been cut into it, and they hung down to just at his eyebrows, which had been thinly, and painfully, plucked. His deep blue eyes were rimmed by dark lashes, and his face looked different. It had gained just the slightest bit of weight, like baby fat, really. His lips had plumped into soft, kissable pillows. James cast his eyes down to the vanity. In the far-off corner there was a roller set. An old-fashioned silver-backed brush was laid down next to it. The area in front of the mirror was replete with makeup of all kinds: lipsticks, mascara, eyeshadow, foundation, blush, and more. An array of nail polishes was lined up alongside them. The drawers were stuffed full of hair ties, barrettes, bobby pins, bows, and ribbons. An ornate box that sat closest to James contained his jewelry. It was hard to believe how much his life had changed, just how much he himself had changed in the 3 months since his mother dropped him off here. He had been a rebellious boy, but now he was a sweet girl. "Jennifer dear, have you plugged in your rollers? I've got your bath ready." "Yes, Auntie." James hadn't, and immediately plugged them in, not wanting to draw his auntie's ire. A few minutes later, she burst into his room. She never knocked. "Good morning, Jennifer. Excited to see Mother today? Go along and bathe. Don't forget to shave. I'll get things sorted out here." Dutifully, James went to the bathroom. There was already a bubble bath in the tub, and he stripped off the nightgown he wore, revealing his body. It too had changed, softened like his face had. He had tender lumps upon his chest, which his auntie promised would get bigger. Sometimes, when the boy passed a palm or thumb over his nipples, a jolt of pleasurable sensation jolted through him. His butt had grown to an arguably greater extent than his breasts had, and it looked positively cute whenever he wore short shorts or his leotard. His cock was a tiny worm which sat on top of a nearly smaller set of balls. His aunt made him swallow 2 pills with every meal. These were the results. James sat down into the warm water and began to soap himself up, and then dipped his head underneath the faucet before squeezed shampoo into his palms. He worked the peach scent into his scalp. Then the poor boy leaned back and grabbed the shaving cream and razor. He traced it over his legs, then his armpits. The motions were seared into his muscle memory. He washed himself clean and then left the tub, grabbing 2 towels. One, he wrapped around his head turban style, the other, he wrapped around his chest, just like any other girl would. Back in his room, Aunt Rose ordered James to sit down at the vanity. She took down his hair turban, and then plugged in a hair dryer. She combed through his hair as she took the heat to it. "Gosh, your hair is so thick," Rose remarked. "Do me a favor, and paint your nails while I do your hair. Go with that color, there." Aunt Rose pointed with her chin to a pastel pink. "Yes, Auntie." Aunt Rose began winding up James' hair in the curlers, soon leaving him with a head full of prickly plastic cylinders. "Sit up now, prim and proper." She wrapped his head in a silk cloth. His hands were left splayed out, the pink polish drying. After an hour of girlish small talk, Aunt Rose declared his hair finished and took the curlers out, James' hair springing back up tightly. Aunt Rose drew the brush through it gently, setting it in soft curls. She directed the boy to the clothes she had chosen. A knee-length pink dress with a white sash around the waist, Peter Pan-style collar, and short puff sleeves, a white slip, nude hose, and a white bra and panty set. It was complete by some white sandals with a short, chunky heel. James pulled the panties up his thighs, and strapped the bra to his changing chest, expertly tightening it. He dropped the slip down over his head, and then stepped into the pantyhose, which sent an involuntary shiver down his spine. Wearing hose with freshly shaven legs always did this to him. Finally, he stepped into the dress, and Aunt Rose did the pearl buttons on the back up. James then buckled his sandals on. "Now, your face, Jennifer." It was back to the vanity where James began to apply foundation, then concealer, then blush. He reddened his cheeks slightly, giving himself a rosy glow. Then he applied pink lipstick to his plump lips, and then lined his eyes before thickening his lashes by applying mascara. While he did this, Aunt Rose drew back locks from his temples on either side, bringing them to meet together in the back, where she clicked in a barrette that was attached to a flouncy white bow. A dusting of light blue eyeshadow, and the boy was finished with his makeup. Next came the jewelry. James slipped the silver studs into his pierced lobes, and then grabbed a small silver chain. On one end hung a small cross, studded with faux rhinestones. He placed it around his neck, and then snapped a bracelet in place across his wrist. One ring for his left hand, a Celtic-style knot, and two for his right, one a promise ring, the other a simple thin band with a heart embossed on it. He was done. "Oh, Jennifer, you look so beautiful. Like an angel. I know you've worked so hard this summer, and I'm so proud of you. I know your mother will be, too. Oh, why don't I take a photo of you? Go sit down on the bed, please." James did as he was told, sitting down on the bed and crossing one leg over the other in a ladle-like fashion. Aunt Rose grabbed a Polaroid camera that was kept on the shelf. That same camera had captured many painful memories over the summer, like James' ear piercing, and the first time he wore a girl's bathing suit. "Cheese!" James smiled and his aunt snapped the picture. It was ejected from the camera. Within a few minutes, the snapshot of James in all his feminine finery would emerge, and stay there forever as a document of this day. Aunt Rose was going to put it in her summer scrapbook for sure. 30 minutes later, James' mother drove up the driveway. James was standing nervously in the entryway next to his aunt. He had a smile forced upon his face, and it hurt. His mother entered, and stood before him, eyes wide open and mouth slightly parted in shock. "Jennifer?" she asked. "Why, yes. My goodness, you look gorgeous." She ran to embrace the feminized boy. "Your hair! That dress!" Tearily, she turned to Aunt Rose. "Oh, thank you, Rose. Thank you so much." Thank you. Don't forget to thank Jennifer, here." With some encouragement, she took to girlhood like a fish to water. "She's become quite prim and proper." Rose smiled. Soon, mother and son were leaving. "Say goodbye to your aunt, sweetie," mother said to James. "Goodbye, Auntie." Aunt Rose waved goodbye, shouting to the pair that Jennifer should come and visit again next summer. The first 5 minutes of the car ride were silent. Then mother began to speak. "Oh, Jennifer, you'll just love your new room." "New room?" James sounded uneasy. "Of course, honey. We couldn't keep it like you had it." More silence. "Rose told me how much you liked ballet. I looked and found a studio 15 minutes from home. I've already spoken to the instructor there and enrolled you. Are you excited?" "Why, yes. Jennifer spent the rest of the car ride watching the landscape hurtle by. She was afraid of what was to come her feminine future as a girl. What would everyone think of the new girl in the ballet class? Would the neighbors notice a girl around the house? Would mother make her go shopping? Or to the salon? The endless girlish possibilities made the poor girl uneasy. There was no escape.